This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
All right, well, I apologize, everyone, and like I said, I think it would be better for us to, to do a repeat of the show and to also bring it to you in a way that you'll be able to hear every word and all that cutting out and everything. I think that it's too distracting, and so I apologize. But anyway, so I'll just kind of wing it here and kind of talk about some of the things again, some of the book projects and the things that I'm doing, and definitely check out. We'll be doing next week again a follow up with Brother Zephaniah Ben Yeshua, the second part of the series on the Paleo Hebrew and the pictographic language. If you have not seen the first one and you did not follow along with us, we just started this whole new series where we're going to be learning Paleo Hebrew together. And it was a very, really exciting show and awesome material and information that Brother Chris Adams brought forth in that particular show. And so that one is now available there on our YouTube channel. I would also ask that people check out the show that Laurel and I did with Dr. Janet Levitin. I thought her information was deeply profound and that it covered so much with regard to health and well-being, and not just the vaccinations, but also, we spoke about the chemtrails and things of that nature, microwaves, fluoride, and your toothpaste, and all of that. So really interesting show that was as well. And the show that we did, Laurel and I did with David Wise, where he spoke about the Iron Republic. That was a fascinating text, and having not heard about that, I have it now, and I will be publishing it at some point. We will be publishing it, and if there's a particular book or a particular text that you are interested in that you would like for us to possibly work on, you're welcome to send us suggestions. Just contact Carol at sacredwordpublishing.net, and we would be glad to, look at it, examine it, and see if it's a worthwhile project for us to get into. Also, I'm working right now on a text called the Folklore of Palestine, which in and of itself is a fascinating text too. It gives the stories, the folklore of the Holy Land, and it gives the stories and ancient tales and myths, biblical mythology from both the Muslim, Christian, and Jewish faiths, going all the way back to ancient times. And so it's interesting to see what, some of these tales and some of the things that are brought up in those particular books. Because, a lot of cultures have different stories, or, like the life of Adam and Eve. There's a Hebrew life of Adam and Eve, a Latin, Georgian and Armenian story of Adam and Eve, the Thracian, which I believe is the most ancient, the Greek. And so there's all these different stories about the life of Adam and Eve. And actually, I'm going to compile those all together as well to give people in one full book all the different stories of the life of Adam and Eve from the various cultures. And so I think that particular text is going to be absolutely fascinating and one that will bless you to better understand the transition that Adam and Eve underwent when they were cast out from paradise and exiled here to the earth. And also, I'm going to share the fullness of the story of what is the fall and then the later elevation, because this is one of the aspects of the Nag Hammadi codices which most people don't understand, and they think it is contradictory to what is conveyed with the story of the fall in Genesis 3, the temptation, the deception, the beguilement of Adam and Eve, and the impregnation with Cain, and they're being cast out of paradise and then clothed in human mortality. That is a different story from that which is spoken about in the Nag Hammadi codices. That story is when they are transformed, and you will, if you read very closely, you will see that the story of the fall occurs on the sixth day, and then it is after the Sabbath rest that Adam and Eve are then exiled, and they're banished here to the earth, and then their bodies are transformed to flesh on what is the eighth day. And then they find themselves living here on the earth amongst the devils and the demons. And so the stories of the creators and the archons and Yaldabaoth spoken of in the Nag Hammadi codices, that was after they were already cast out of the heavens and they found themselves banished here to the earth. And so that, and then it portrays how they were elevated in wisdom and knowledge, because for all of us, when we are cast out of the heavens, when we lose our first estate, our pre-existent being, we are incarnate into flesh, we all drink from the cup of forgetfulness, as is portrayed in the story, the Chronicles of Jeremiah, the formation of the child, or in the Aunt Naomi, the 4,000 years of Jewish folklore. There's a story called the creation of souls in that particular text, and it describes how um, when we enter into the flesh, even though we are shown both paradise and heaven and the place of the righteous and what, how we should act and how we should be, and we are told what is going to happen to us over the course of our lifetimes, still we drink from the cup of forgetfulness entering here into flesh form, and we lose all that knowledge, all that information, and yet it is burned to soul. Those memories, those teachings, those lessons, our pre-existent past, all of that is burned to uh, our souls, burned into our being, into the core of our being, and that knowledge is inherent within us. And it's only by um, by seeking remembrance and seeking the knowledge of the gospel and coming to understand the riddles of the secrets, which Christ says, the secrets that have been kept since the foundation of the world, even before the foundation of the world. Because as angelic beings, everybody pre existed before even the destruction of the earth and the recreation of it. And so all these memories and all this knowledge is inherent within you. And yet, most people, because they don't strive to come to such discernment, they never tap into what some would call the Akashic records, or New Age terminology, but it's the same thing. There's like the books of life. They hold the account of all the deeds, all of our actions, all those things, our behaviors in this lifetime, and that of our previous lifetime, our election. And I'm not speaking about reincarnation, I'm speaking about our spiritual embodiment as angelic beings, sons of God, before entering into flesh, that we pre existed. And it is our election, as is referenced in Romans and also Malachi, that if you just keyword search that word election in the scriptures, you'll see how it is tied to some being favored, like Jacob, and some being hated, like Esau. And that's not just random. It's not just, oh, God decided, well, these people are going to be serpent seed and they're going to be uh, disregarded and numbered with these children of perdition. No, there was something that led to the determination of such election. And that has to do with our previous embodiment. That has to do with our angelic pre-existence and the war in heaven and the decisions and the actions and the behaviors and all those things that were connected to the decisions that we made prior to coming into flesh form. And so, and I know that, this is a concept which is not spoken about and certainly not taught in the mainstream churches. And this is another one of those concepts which I am largely ridiculed for. But again, if you study it within the scriptural context of even just the 66 books of the King James Version of the Bible, you see without question that we have been predestinated and that we are to die like one of the princes, like we were the council of the mighty, but we would die like the sons of men. So the sentence of death, which was levied upon Satan and the fallen angels and also Adam and Eve, is also levied upon all of us as the children of humanity. And it also specifies specifically that Christ knew us before the foundation. And so this is a little self. All right, we'll be right back, everyone. All right, welcome back, everybody, for final segment. And so I'm just going to be speaking about, some various topics, some different things, because I didn't really have anything planned. But there's also a book called As It Comes to Pass. And it's a folklore, Jewish mythology, Hebraic mythology, mystery book about the life of David and Solomon. And it's the stories that are connected to the reigns and the lives that they had and the relationship that they shared. And in that particular book, you can find it on Amazon, I believe, still relatively easy. The hardback editions are becoming extra scarce, but you should be able to find this particular book, and I do recommend that people read it. And let me confirm really quickly as to because I don't want to be telling you, and so let me just check to be. Yes, it is. And it came to pass, the legends and stories about King David and King Solomon. And you can find it available on Amazon for $10.99. It's by Chaim Naaman Bialik and Howard Simon. And let me see. It doesn't give you the contents. you're not able to go through the contents, but I'll read the description just to give you a better idea. It says this scarce antiquarian book is a facsimile reprint of the original. Due to its age, it may contain imperfections such as marks, notations, blah, blah, blah. It doesn't really speak about the actual text, but as I said, I do recommend that people check it out and read it. And perhaps, maybe even, well, I was going to say we should republish it as well. But I'll consider doing that. But, anyways, there's another book that I do recommend people read and study from as well. It is called The Legends of the Patriarchs and the Prophets. And it was from that book I was bringing forth some quotes and quotations on the 15th of Nisan last night. And I was reading because it's filled with fascinating information and stories from all over the world about each one of the different patriarchs and the prophets, and even the giants, the fallen angels, and um, anything that you want to learn about as far as the Genesis narrative, the teachings and the studies that were brought forth. It gives you great insight and introspection into all of that information, into all of that knowledge, sort of like the Targum. In studying the Targum, you read and you get greater insight into what seems to be ambiguous in some of the biblical stories. And so, anyways, I'll share with you just a little bit because it's also in this text that it speaks about and verifies that the war in heaven and the fallen angels being cast out occurred on the second day. And so, that's another interesting concept which is only found alluded to in one place, and that's second Enoch, chapter 29 and 30, where it speaks about the fallen ones, Lucifer and the order of angels underneath him being cast out on the second day. And so I'll share just a little bit with you to give you a little bit more understanding, just to pique your interest a little bit. On the fall of the angels and the war in heaven, it says this: in the beginning, before the creation of heaven and earth, God made the angels, and that we were part of all that. Everybody was part of all that. All that everybody that is in this incarnated into being now, we were first angelic beings, and all of us were formed on the first day. All the souls of all the creatures, all the souls of even the elements, the luminaries, the earth, Gaia, everything, all of because everything is also conscious and alive and is indwelt by the Spirit of the Most High God. And so, anyways, we were all created on the first day. So, in the beginning, before the creation of heaven and earth, God made the angels free intelligences and free wills. Out of his love, he made them that they might be eternally happy. And that their happiness might be complete, he gave them the perfection of a created nature. That is, he gave them freedom. But happiness is only attained by the free will agreeing in its freedom to accord with the will of God. Some of the angels, by an act of free will, obeyed the will of God, and in such obedience found perfect happiness. Other angels, by an act of free will, rebelled against the will of God, and in such disobedience found misery. And so you know, everything was created perfect too. And there was no evil until Lucifer, there was iniquity found within him when he was jealous of the Christ, of the Son, and his stature and position. And that's when he decided to rebel and to try to overthrow Christ when he was given dominion. All right, continuing. Historically, it is represented as a war in heaven, and there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent, called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And so we see on the second day that the rebel angels were cast down here to the earth, and that they were flying over the bottomless, as it says in uh, um, as it says in Second Enoch. All right, but continuing. The reason of the revolt was that Satan desired to be as great as God. Thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds, and I will be like the Most High. But God says, but I will cast thee down to the pit of hell. The war ended in the fall of Satan and those whom he had led into apostasy. And to this fall are referred the words of Christ, I saw Satan like lightning fall from heaven. Fabricius, in his collections of the apocryphal writings of the Old Testament, has preserved some of the triumph which the archangel Michael sang on attaining the victory. This in a portion of it. Glory to our God, praise to his holy name. He is our God, glory to be to him. He is our Lord. He is, to him be the triumph. He has stretched forth his right hand. He has manifested his power. He has cast down our adversaries. They are mad who resist him. They are accursed who depart from his commandments. He knoweth all things and cannot err. His will is sovereignty, just, and all that he wills is good. All that he advises is holy. Supreme intelligence cannot be deceived. Perfect being cannot will what is evil. Nothing is above that which is supreme. Nothing is better than that which is perfect. None is worthy beside him but him whom he has made worthy. He must be loved above all things and adored as the eternal King. You have abandoned your God. You have revolted against him. You have desired to be gods. You have fallen from your high estates. You have gone down like a fallen stone. Acknowledge that God is great, that his works are perfect, and that his judgments are just. Glory be to God through ages of ages, praises of joy for all his works. This is the song of the archangel, is said to have been revealed to S. Amadeus. According to the Talmudists, Satan, whose proper name is Samael, the angel of death, was one of these seraphim with 6 wings. He was not driven out of heaven till after he had led Adam and Eve into sin, and then Samael and his host were precipitated out of the place of bliss with God's curse to weigh them down in the struggle between Michael and Samael. The falling seraph caught the wings of Michael and tried to drag him down with him, but God saved him, whence Michael derives his name, the rescued. Michael means the rescued. This is what the Rabbi Bechiah says in his commentary on the 5 books of Moses. The fall of the angels. According to a Talmudic authority, the apostate angels having fallen in a heap, God laid his little finger on them and consumed them. Samael was the regent of the planet Mars. and this he rules still, and therefore it is that those born under the influence of that star are lovers of war and given to strife. He was chief among the angels of God, and now he is prince among devils. His name is derived from Simi, which means to blind and deceive. He stands on the left side of men. He goes by various names, such as the old serpent, the unclean spirit, Satan, Leviathan, and sometimes also Azazel. In his fall, he spat in his hatred against God, and his spittle stained the moon, and thus it is that the moon has on it spots. After his fall, Satan took to himself four wives, Lilith and Nama, the daughter of Lamech and sister of Tubal-Cain, Egarith and Mashallath. Each became the mother of a great host of devils, and each rules with her host over a season of the year. And at the change of seasons, there is a great gathering of devils about their mothers. Lilith is followed by 478 legions of devils, for that number is comprised in her name. According to some, Lilith is identical with Eve. She rules over Damascus, Nama over Tyre, Egarith over Malta, and Rhodes and Machalat over Crete. Many traditions date the existence of angels and demons from a remote period before the creation of the world, but some connect the fall of Satan and his host with the creation of man. Abu Djafar Muhammad Tabari says that when God made Adam, he bade all the angels worship him as their king and superior, says the Quran. All the angels adored Adam, but that Satan or Iblis answered, I will not adore Adam, for he is made of earth and I of fire. Therefore I am better than he. And that God thereupon cursed Iblis and gave him the form of a devil because of his pride, his vain confidence, and his disobedience. After God had made man, he thus addressed the angels, when I have breathed the portion of my spirit into him, bow before him and adore. After he had inspired Adam with his spirit, all the angels of every degree adored him except Iblis. He, through pride and envy, scorned to do this and disobeyed God. Then God cursed him, and he cut him off from all hope in divine mercy. And he called him Skikayathim Regiman, Satan devoted to misery. And he cast him out who had been before an angel of the earth and a keeper of terrestrial things and a guardian of paradise. But the general opinion seems to have been that the fall of the angels preceded the creation of man, and this is how I write it and account it. But in my book, The War in Heaven, I share with you both sides of this story, that they were cast out before the creation of humanity, but also that they were again condemned when Adam was made and they refused to bow before him. And so, to get better understanding on that, this is also how it is written in Paradise Lost as well, which I was surprised to see that, because most people believe that the war in heaven, if it's a future thing, when I say it is a past thing, and that the angels were cast down and cast out here to the earth way before humanity was, on the second day, according to Enoch. But the general opinion seems to have been that the fall of the angels preceded the creation of man. Ibn Ezra dates it on the second day of creation. See, that's, again, fascinating. Another confirmation that it occurred on the second day. Others on the first day when God divided the light from the darkness. Manasseh ben Israel, well, I actually speak about that as well, that the separation of the forces of light and darkness occurred on the first day, and that the war in heaven continued through the second day, and that they were cast down and cast out on the second day. Manasseh ben Israel says that God has placed the devils in the clouds, that they might torment the wicked with thunder and lightnings and showers of hail and tempests of wind and that this took place on the second day when the firmaments were divided. It's also my opinion, as I speculate, that the firmament was put into place in order to secure the devils and to imprison them into this time space dimensionality. As the fall of Satan took place through his aspiration to be God, so it is closely connected with the origin of idolatry and false worship. For now that Satan is cast out of heaven, he still seeks to exalt himself into the place of God, and therefore leads men from the worship of the true God into idolatry. Thus, the gods of the heathens were regarded by the first Christians as devils, aspiring to receive the worship from men on earth, which they sought and failed to obtain in heaven. Thus, St. Paul tells the Corinthians that the Gentiles sacrifice to devils. The temptation of Christ can only be fully understood when we bear in mind that pride and craving for worship is the prime source of Satan's actions. It says, all me's will I give thee. All these will I give thee, he said to Christ, if thou wilt fall down and worship me. It was the second attempt of Satan to set himself above the Most High. Among the heathen, traditions of the angelic apostasy and war have remained. An Indian story goes as follows. At the head of the apostate spirits is Mahisasura, or the great Asur. He and those who followed him were once good, but before the creation of the world, they refused obedience to Brahma. Wherefore they were cast down by the assistance of Skiva into the abyss of Andhra. Mahisura is also representative as the great serpent Varita, against which Indra fought, and which after a desperate struggle he overcame. The Persian tradition is that Ahriman, the chief of the rebels, is not by nature evil. He was not created evil by the Eternal One, but he became evil by revolting against his will. And the ancient books of the Pharisees, the Parsis, assert that at the last clay, Ahriman will return to obedience, and having been purified by fire, will regain the place among the heavenly beings which he lost. In this war, the Izids fought against the Divs, headed by Ahriman, and flung the conquered into Darazama, or hell. The Norse story is that Loki, the spirit of evil, is one of the gods and sat with them at their table till he declared himself their enemy, when he with his vile progeny, the wolf and the serpent, were cast out. The wolf is bound, Thor constrains the serpent, and Loki is chained under the mountains, and a serpent distills poison on his breast when he tosses. In agony, the earth quakes. In Egypt, Typhon was brother of Osiris, but he revolted against him. Maximus of Tyre and Apollonius of Rhodes, following Orpheus, speak of the war of the gods against the angels who rebelled under the chief Ophion, or the serpent. And Pharisees, according to Origen, sang of this event as having taken place in prehistoric times, so that the knowledge of it could only have reached man by revelation. He described the two armies face to face, one commanded by Saturn, the supreme creator, the other by Ophiuchus, the old dragon, and the defeat of the latter and its expulsion from the realms of bliss to Ogenos, the regions of annihilation. The story of the Titans is connected with this. They were the sons of Uranus, heaven, and Gaia, earth, and dwelt originally in heaven, whence they are called the Uranidas. They were 12 in number. Uranus threw out of heaven his other sons, the Hecatoncheires and the Cyclopses, and precipitated them into Tartarus. Whereupon Gaia persuaded her sons, the Titans, to rise up against their father and liberate their brethren. They did as their mother bade them, deposed Uranus, and placed off his throne their brother Cronus, who immediately re-imprisoned the Cyclopses. But Zeus, with his brothers, fought against the reigning Titans, cast them out of heaven, and enthroned himself on the seat of Cronus, and the Titans he enchained in the abyss under Tartarus. I'll just read a tiny bit more. This is simply the same story told over twice and formed into a dynasty. Kronos, Titan, is the same as the Arabic Shaitan, the Earth's Titan, the time god, and the biblical Satan or Lucifer, the son of the morning. Amongst the Baltas or the Sumatra exists a myth to this effect. Batara Guru, the supreme god from whose daughter Putriara Buran all mankind are descended, cast the mountain Bakara out of heaven upon the head of the serpent, his foe, and made the home of his son, Layanga, Layada, Mandi, on the top of this mountain. From this summit, the sun descended that he might bind the hands or feet of the serpent as it shook its head and made the earth rock. Connected with the fall of Satan is his lameness. The devil is represented in art and legend as limping on one foot. This was occasioned by his having broken his leg in his fall. Hephaestus, who pursued Athene and attempted to outrage divine wisdom, was precipitated from heaven into the fire island Lemnos and was lamed thereby. Hermes cut the hamstring out of Typhon, therewith to string his lyre. The Norse god Loki lusted after Freya and was lamed thereof. Wieland the smith, Verundular, who ventured to do violence to Beodaphil, was lamed and was known thereby. Phaeton, daring to drive his father's chariot of the sun, was cast out and thrown to earth. All right, I'm going to stop there because I know I'm running out of time. But as you can see, there are so many fascinating stories, so many fascinating tales, that when you read them, in my opinion, you will gain better understanding, better insight into the biblical narrative and how it ties together with the mythologies around the world. God bless all. Good night. We'll pick it up next week. Shalom all.